Chosen one, are you tired of feeling invisible while others seem to effortlessly rise? Have you wondered why your prayers feel like whispers lost in an empty sky? Do you lie awake at night questioning if God has forgotten your name? You are chosen. If you're hearing this right now, it's not random. It's not chance. It's divine design. Listen carefully. What I'm about to share will shatter everything you thought you knew about God's timing in your life. For 70, 80, even 90 years, you've watched the world spin. You've buried loved ones, survived heartbreak, weathered storms that should have destroyed you. But here's the shocking truth they never told you in Sunday school. Your greatest assignment is still ahead. You've lived through decades of change, from rotary phones to smartphones, from handwritten letters to instant messages. But what if this season, right here, right now, is the most important one yet? Not just for you, but for generations who will carry your legacy long after you've touched heaven's shore. God didn't preserve you through every trial, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, just so you could fade quietly into the background. He's been preparing you, seasoning you like fine wine, refining you like precious gold for a moment, exactly like this one. The enemy whispered, you were too old. Society said you were forgotten. Even your own mirror might have convinced you your best days were behind you. But heaven is laughing at those lies right now, because what's coming will leave your family speechless and your community in awe. Before we go deeper, and beloved, we must go deeper, I want to pause and honor something beautiful. Thank you to every single soul who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel forgotten in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your time, your open heart. It all matters. And if this message is already stirring something deep within your spirit, go ahead. If something inside you is already stirring, if you feel that this message might be for you, type 777 the comments right now. Let the heavens take note. You're here and you're listening. Because what heaven is about to reveal through these next few minutes will change everything you thought possible about the time you have left on this earth. You are chosen. And chosen ones. Your time is now. Have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered if your life's work was just invisible? Have you given everything to your children, your spouse, your community, only to feel like nobody truly sees the depth of what you've sacrificed? Do you lie awake wondering if the world has simply moved past you, leaving you behind like yesterday's newspaper? Dear one, I need you to lean in close, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter the lie that's been whispering in your ear for years. Maybe you've spent a lifetime being the glue that held your family together. You were the one who drove carpools for 30 years, who worked double shifts to pay for college tuitions, who sat by hospital bedsides when everyone else had somewhere more important to be. You were the steady heartbeat in a chaotic world, the foundation everyone built their dreams upon. And yet, you felt invisible. You've watched your children build lives in cities 1,000 miles away. You've seen friends pass on, one by one, taking pieces of your history with them. Social media shows you a world that seems to worship youth and ignore wisdom. Even in your own church, you wonder if anyone really sees you anymore, or if you've become just another face in the back pew. You wonder, have I done enough? Did I matter? Was any of it worth it? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What you're feeling isn't failure, it's preparation. The truth is, you weren't overlooked, you were hidden. Like Moses, who spent 40 years in the desert before God called him to deliver a nation. Like David, who was forgotten in the fields tending sheep while his brothers were invited to the feast, until the prophet came looking for the one God had chosen. Like Jesus himself, who lived 30 years in obscurity before his hour arrived. You see, God has a pattern. He doesn't work with the flashy, the obvious, the ones the world celebrates. He works with the faithful, the steady, the ones who keep showing up when nobody's watching. Every sleepless night you spent caring for sick children, God was watching. every dollar you stretched to make ends meet. He counted every sacrifice. Every time you bit your tongue instead of speaking harsh words, heaven took note. Every prayer you whispered in the dark when hope felt thin, each one was recorded in his book. Psalm 139:16 tells us, "All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Your invisible years weren't wasted years, they were investment years. God was building something in you that the world couldn't see but heaven desperately needed. Think about this. A thread woven through the fabric of your life has been creating a masterpiece. The pattern wasn't clear from your perspective because you were too close to see it. But step back, step way back, and you'll see that every trial, every triumph, every moment of feeling forgotten was actually God positioning you for something magnificent. You know what the enemy fears most? Not the young warrior charging into battle, not the gifted speaker commanding crowds. The enemy trembles at the seasoned saint who has walked with God through decades of storms and still believes. You carry something the young ones don't have yet: proven faith, battle-tested hope, unshakable trust, forged in the furnace of real life. At 70, Moses was just getting started. At 90, Anna the prophetess was still in the temple, waiting for the Messiah. At 127, Sarah was still part of God's promise to bless all nations. Age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Here's what the world doesn't understand. God doesn't measure impact by Instagram followers or bank account balances. He measures it by faithfulness, by character, by the lives you've touched when nobody was keeping score. The grandchild you influenced with a bedtime story. The neighbor you helped through a crisis. The stranger you smiled at in the grocery store who was having the worst day of their life. You've been marked, chosen one. Not for retirement, not for irrelevance. You've been marked for significance in a way that will leave people speechless. Right now, in this very moment, God is looking down at you and saying, "Now, after all these years of preparation, all these seasons of testing, all these moments of feeling invisible, now is your time to shine." The spiritual realm is buzzing with activity around your life. Angels are being positioned. Divine appointments are being arranged. Resources you can't imagine are being mobilized. The same God who told Abraham at 75 to pack up and start a new adventure is speaking to you right now. You thought your story was ending, but God is saying it's just beginning. The first 70, 80, 90 years, that was just the opening act. What's coming next will be the performance that leaves audiences on their feet, applauding the faithfulness of a God who never forgets his chosen ones. But here's the catch, and this is crucial: you have to believe it. You have to stop agreeing with the lie that says you're too old, too late, too forgotten. You have to start agreeing with heaven's truth. You are chosen, you are prepared, and your greatest days are ahead of you. If this feels like your story, if something deep in your spirit is awakening right now, I need you to pause and comment. God didn't forget me. He was preparing me. Let that declaration break every lie that said you were too late. Let it shatter every whisper that said you were invisible. Because, chosen one, you're about to discover that being hidden wasn't punishment. It was preparation for something so beautiful, so significant, so divinely orchestrated that when it unfolds, even you will be amazed at what God can do with a life that's been seasoned by time and sweetened by surrender. You know what nobody tells you about being chosen? They don't warn you about the battles. They don't mention the storms that seem to follow you wherever you go. They don't explain why your life feels like it's been written by someone who believes you can handle more pain than anyone else. Look at your hands right now. Those weathered fingers have wiped away tears that most people will never shed. Those lines tell stories of sleepless nights, of holding families together when everything was falling apart, of standing strong when your world was crumbling beneath your feet. Chosen people don't have easy lives. They face custom-made battles. Think about Joseph, 17 years old, dreaming dreams that seemed too big for a shepherd boy. What happened next? His own brothers threw him in a pit. sold him into slavery. He spent years in an Egyptian prison for a crime he never committed. Easy life? Hardly. But God was forging a leader who would save nations from famine. Consider Job, a righteous man who lost everything in a single day. His children, his wealth, his health gone. His own wife told him to curse God and die. Friends accused him of hidden sin. Yet in his darkest hour, Job declared, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." That wasn't the voice of a defeated man. That was the voice of someone being refined for a testimony that would encourage millions for thousands of years. Ruth faced a choice that would have broken most people. Her husband died. Her mother-in-law was heading back to a foreign land. Every logical voice told her to stay, to rebuild, to find security. Instead, she chose loyalty over logic, faith over fear. Where you go, I will go. Those weren't just beautiful words, they were the declaration of a woman whose bloodline would produce King David and ultimately Jesus Christ. And if you think this pattern ended with biblical times, think again. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. 27 years. While other men his age were building careers and watching grandchildren grow, he was breaking rocks on Robben Island. But those prison walls weren't containing him, they were preparing him to heal a nation torn apart by hatred. Some of you survived divorces that shattered your spirit into pieces you're still picking up. You thought you'd found your person, your forever, and then watched it all crumble despite your prayers, despite your fighting, despite giving everything you had. The loneliness that followed felt like a punishment from heaven itself. Some of you lost children. There's no pain on earth that compares to burying someone you brought into this world. You've sat in hospital rooms praying for miracles that never came. You've stood graveside wondering why God would take the innocent while leaving the guilty untouched. Others battled sickness that doctors couldn't explain or cure. Cancer that ravaged your body. Addiction that hijacked your mind. Depression that convinced you the world would be better without you. You've swallowed pills by the handful. Endured treatments that made you sicker than the disease, fought wars inside your own body that no one else could see. Maybe you were the one holding your family together when everyone else fell apart. The strong one, the reliable one, the one who never got to break down because someone always needed you to be the rock. You carried burdens that weren't yours, fixed problems you didn't create, and sacrificed dreams so others could live theirs. You've wondered why. Why me? Why this? Why now? You've questioned if God was punishing you for something, if you'd committed some unforgivable sin that earned you a lifetime of struggle. Here's the truth that will set your soul on fire. That wasn't punishment. That was preparation. Hell hit you hardest because heaven marked you first. Every battle you faced was custom designed to build something specific in you. Every storm was meant to teach you how to stand when others fall. Every loss was preparing you to help others find what they thought was gone forever. The enemy didn't attack you randomly. He targeted you specifically because he could see what God was building. He recognized the threat you would become. Satan doesn't waste ammunition on people who pose no danger to his kingdom. He reserves his fiercest attacks for those destined to do the most damage to darkness. You think your struggles disqualified you. They certified you. You believe your scars make you damaged goods. They make you a living testimony. Every tear you shed watered ground that's about to bloom with purpose beyond your wildest imagination. God doesn't choose the qualified. He qualifies the chosen. And the qualification process isn't pleasant. It's painful. It's precise. It's purposeful. David killed a lion and a bear before he faced Goliath. Those weren't random encounters, they were training sessions. God was developing the faith muscle David would need when he stood before a giant while a nation watched. Your giant killing days aren't behind you, they're ahead of you. Every battle you survived was preparing you for victories yet to come. Every wound you endured was building the compassion you'll need to heal others. Every time you got back up after being knocked down, you were developing the resilience that will inspire generations. But here's what's keeping you up at night, isn't it? the question that haunts your quiet moments. Why? Why would God allow the chosen ones to be tested like this? What is He preparing you for? The answer is bigger than you think, and it's closer than you know. Beloved, I need to tell you something that might shake you to your very core. For decades, you've been told that your prime is behind you, that your greatest contributions are memories gathering dust on forgotten shelves, that God's plan for your life peaked somewhere around your 40th birthday, and everything since has been borrowed time. That is a lie straight from the pit of hell. You're not running out of time. You're walking into divine timing. Listen to me carefully, and I mean this with every fiber of my being. What the world calls late, heaven calls precisely on schedule. What society labels past your prime, God declares perfectly positioned. You haven't missed your moment. You've been prepared for it. Think about this. Why would the Almighty God allow you to accumulate 70, 80, 90 years of wisdom, heartbreak, triumph, and unshakable faith if He was done using you? Why would He grant you the gift of perspective that only comes from surviving decades of storms if your greatest work was already finished? The answer will astound you. Moses was 80 years old, 80, when God appeared in that burning bush. 80. Most people today are planning retirement communities at 80. Moses was planning the liberation of an entire nation. He didn't whisper, "Lord, I'm too old for this." He said, "Here I am, send me." And God used those 80 years of desert wandering, palace living, and leadership testing to prepare Moses for the moment that would define not just his legacy, but the destiny of millions. Sarah was 90 when she laughed at God's promise of motherhood. 90. She looked at her wrinkled hands, her weathered body, and burst into laughter at the impossibility. But God had the last laugh. Because Sarah didn't just become a mother, she became the mother of nations. Every child of Abraham traces their lineage back to a woman who thought she was too old for God's greatest miracle. You want to know what's controversial? What's shocking? It's not that God uses young people that's expected. What's shocking is that God's most powerful moves in Scripture happen through people who the world had written off as past their expiration date. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she finally saw the Messiah with her own eyes. 84 years of waiting, watching, praying. But when that moment came, she didn't whisper her testimony, she proclaimed it to everyone who would listen. Her voice, aged by decades of faithfulness, became the first evangelistic cry, announcing Jesus to the world. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain. Not give me a rocking chair, not give me a quiet retirement, give me this mountain." He looked at the giants everyone else feared and said, "I'm as strong today as I was 40 years ago. Let me at them." So here's my question for you. What mountain is God asking you to claim right now? What giant is He calling you to face? What impossible dream has He been whispering in your ear during those quiet moments when everyone else thinks you should be settling down? You are not too old. You are not too late. In fact, beloved, you are right on schedule. The enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your season of impact is over. He's whispered lies about your age, your energy, your relevance. He's painted pictures of rocking chairs and quiet corners when God has been painting visions of platforms and pulpits, boardrooms and battlefields, stages and sanctuaries. Why? Because the enemy knows something the world doesn't understand. There is no weapon more powerful than a senior saint who finally understands their divine assignment. There is no force more unstoppable than someone who has survived 8 decades of life and finally realizes that every single year was preparation for this moment. You have something the young generation doesn't possess: unshakable wisdom. You've buried friends, survived heartbreak, weathered financial storms, raised children, built careers, and you're still standing. That's not luck, that's divine preparation. God has been forging you in the fire of experience, and now you're ready for the assignment that requires someone who cannot be shaken, cannot be intimidated, cannot be moved. The young may have energy, but you have endurance. They may have enthusiasm, but you have expertise. They may have dreams, but you have discernment. God doesn't need your youth, He needs your wisdom. He doesn't need your speed, He needs your steadiness. He doesn't need your perfection, He needs your perspective. Right now, as I speak these words, there are people in your community, your family, your circle of influence, who are facing battles that require someone with your specific combination of faith, experience, and fearlessness. There are businesses that need your wisdom, ministries that need your maturity, young people who need your mentorship. God didn't keep you here just to watch from the sidelines. He kept you here to get back in the game. The time is now, not tomorrow, not when you feel more prepared, not when circumstances align perfectly. Now, because divine timing doesn't wait for human convenience. Divine timing creates the moment, and this is yours. Declare it now. My season starts today. Type it in the comments. Speak it to your mirror. Pray it in your quiet place. Own it with every fiber of your being. Because the God who parted seas for Moses, opened wombs for Sarah, and moved mountains for Caleb, is the same God who has been preparing you for decades for this exact moment. Your greatest chapter isn't behind you, it's about to be written. And the world has no idea what's coming. You felt it, haven't you? That moment when you walked into a hospital room and somehow the air felt lighter. When you sat next to someone grieving and they stopped crying, not because of anything you said, but simply because you were there. When your grandchild calmed down just by being held in your arms. Dear one, that wasn't coincidence. That was consecration. You've been walking around thinking you're ordinary while carrying the extraordinary. You've been apologizing for taking up space while heaven celebrates every room you enter. For decades, you've underestimated the weight of your presence, the gravity of your spirit, the sheer power radiating from a life that's been refined by fire and seasoned by grace. Listen to me carefully. You've walked into rooms and felt the atmosphere shift. You've spoken a single sentence that broke someone's silence. That's not personality. That's anointing. The enemy has spent years convincing you that influence requires a platform, that impact demands an audience, that ministry needs a microphone. But here's what hell doesn't want you to know. Your presence alone is dismantling darkness wherever you go. Think about Moses. When he came down from Mount Sinai, his face shone so brightly that the Israelites couldn't look at him. Exodus 34-29 says his face was radiant because he had spoken with the Lord. Moses didn't know he was glowing, but everyone around him felt the power of his encounter with God. You are Moses in your family. You are Moses in your neighborhood. Every prayer you've whispered, every scripture you've meditated on, every moment you've spent in God's presence has been marking you, changing you, charging you with divine electricity that others can't explain but absolutely feel. Your daughter calls you when her marriage is falling apart. Not her therapist first, you. Your neighbor confides their deepest fears over the fence, not to their best friend, to you. Complete strangers tell you their life stories in grocery store lines. Why? Because you carry something they recognize, even when they can't name it. You're like a lighthouse in someone's storm, even if you've never seen the waves they're drowning in. But here's where this gets dangerous for the kingdom of darkness. You've been thinking small while God has been thinking eternal. You've been seeing yourself as retired while heaven sees you as just getting started. Every gray hair is a crown of wisdom. Every wrinkle tells a story of survival. Every slow step carries the weight of victory over circumstances that should have destroyed you. The Apostle Paul understood this power. In 2 Corinthians 2:14-16, he writes, "Thanks be to God, who always leads us as captives in Christ's triumphal procession, and uses us to spread the aroma of the knowledge of Him everywhere. For we are to God the pleasing aroma of Christ among those who are being saved and those who are perishing." You are the aroma of Christ. When you walk into that nursing home to visit a friend, you're not just visiting, you're releasing heaven's fragrance into a place that often smells of despair. When you sit in that doctor's waiting room, you're not just waiting, you're shifting the spiritual climate for every person around you. But the church taught you to wait for permission. Society taught you to shrink with age. Your own mind taught you that your best days are behind you. All lies from the pit of hell. You don't need a pulpit to preach. Your presence is your ministry. That peace that follows you, that's not your personality, that's the Prince of Peace living through you. That wisdom people seek from you, that's not your experience, that's the spirit of counsel operating in you. That strength others draw from you, that's not your character, that's the mighty God manifesting through your surrendered life. I need you to understand something that will change how you see every remaining day on this earth. You are not aging, you are accelerating. You are not slowing down, you are being positioned. You are not becoming irrelevant, you are becoming indispensable to God's plan for this generation. Right now, there's a young mother drowning in postpartum depression who needs to feel your peaceful presence. There's a businessman on the verge of suicide who needs to witness your unshakable joy. There's a teenager cutting themselves who needs to experience the love of God flowing through your grandmother's embrace. They don't need your advice. They need your atmosphere. They don't need your words. They need your presence. They don't need your perfection. They need your authenticity, the raw, real, battle-tested faith that radiates from someone who has walked with God through every storm and lived to tell about it. This is why the enemy has been whispering that you're invisible. This is why depression tries to isolate you. This is why loneliness attempts to convince you nobody needs you anymore. Because hell knows if you ever fully realize the power you carry, if you ever step completely into the authority of your presence, if you ever stop apologizing for the space you take up and start claiming the ground God has given you, darkness doesn't stand a chance. You have been weaponized by worship. You have been armed with answered prayers. You have been loaded with the testimonies of God's faithfulness. Every time you enter a room, you're not just showing up, you're bringing backup from heaven. If you've ever felt invisible but now understand your presence carries weight, type, I am a lighthouse. Watch how many others recognize their own light in your words. But this revelation demands a response, because now you know your presence isn't passive, it's prophetic, it's not accidental, it's intentional. God positioned you exactly where you are, with exactly the influence you have, for such a time as this. The question that will determine the impact of your remaining years is this: will you shrink back into the shadows of what others expect from someone your age, or will you step forward into the blazing light of who God says you are? You've sown in tears. You've prayed when no one was watching. You gave when you barely had. For decades, you've been the one showing up, the one who brought casseroles when neighbors were sick, the one who stayed late at church cleaning up after everyone else went home. The one who sent birthday cards, made phone calls, remembered anniversaries when your own children forgot yours. You've watched younger people get promoted while you were passed over. You've seen less qualified individuals receive recognition while your contributions went unnoticed. You've endured whispers behind your back, they're too old, they're out of touch, their time has passed. But here's what those people don't understand about God's economy. He keeps ledgers. Every tear you've shed in secret, recorded. Every act of kindness when you were running on empty, documented. Every time you chose love when you had every right to choose bitterness, written in heaven's archives. The enemy convinced you that your season was over. He whispered that your best years were behind you, that you were just marking time until heaven called you home. He made you believe that all those years of faithful service, all those prayers prayed in the darkness, all those sacrifices made without applause, he made you think it was all for nothing. But God is about to prove the devil is a liar. You see, there's something most people don't understand about divine timing. The world operates on a 30-year cycle: school, career, retirement, but God operates on eternal rhythms. David was 30 when he became king, but it was the 40 years of shepherding, running, hiding, and waiting that prepared him for the throne. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver Israel. 80. When the world would have put him in a nursing home, God gave him the assignment that would define his legacy. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Now comes the reversal, the divine turn, the suddenly season. Listen to what the Spirit is saying. The table is turning, not next year, not when circumstances change. Right now, in this very moment, heaven is rearranging the playing field. The people who overlooked you are about to see you differently. The doors that were slammed shut are about to swing wide open. The resources that seemed impossible to access are about to flow like rivers. Psalm 23:5 declares, "He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies." Did you catch that? Not after your enemies leave, not when they apologize. Right there, in front of them, God spreads a feast. Your enemies, those who counted you out, who whispered about your age, who made you feel invisible, they're about to witness something that will leave them speechless. But here's the beautiful part. This isn't about revenge, it's about revelation. God isn't honoring you to embarrass them, He's honoring you to reveal His character. When they see God blessing the faithful, promoting the humble, elevating the overlooked, something shifts in their understanding of how heaven operates. Your enemies will watch God honor you, not out of revenge, but revelation. Think about this. Right now, somewhere in your city, there's a conversation happening about you. Maybe it's in a boardroom where your name is being mentioned for an opportunity you didn't even apply for. Maybe it's in a lawyer's office where your name appears in a will you never knew existed. Maybe it's in a hospital where test results are coming back better than anyone expected. You don't know about these conversations yet, but God does. He's orchestrating divine appointments, aligning favorable circumstances, positioning the right people to notice your faithfulness. The promotion that seemed impossible at your age, it's being prepared. The financial breakthrough you stopped hoping for, it's in motion. The health restoration the doctors said wouldn't happen, God is rewriting medical reports. But here's what requires your faith. You have to start preparing for overflow before you see it. You have to start thinking differently about your future. Stop planning for decline and start planning for divine increase. Stop buying clothes for hiding and start buying clothes for showing up. Stop whispering your dreams and start declaring your destiny. The widow of Zarephath had one meal left, enough for her and her son to eat before they died. But when Elijah asked her to feed him first, she made the most illogical decision of her life. She gave away her last handful of flour. And what happened? The oil never ran out. The flour never diminished. In her obedience, she discovered that God's multiplication defies human mathematics. Your handful of flour moment is here. The decision to believe God for the impossible, despite what your bank account says, despite what your doctor says, despite what your family says. This is where faith becomes supernatural fuel. Some of you have been praying the same prayer for 20 years. Some of you have been believing for the same miracle for 30 years. And the enemy has been whispering, "Give up, it's too late." If God was going to do it, He would have done it by now. But what if God has been waiting for this exact season? What if He's been allowing time to pass so that when the breakthrough comes, there's no question it was Him? What if your delayed answer isn't denial but divine strategy? The longer the wait, the greater the weight of glory that follows. Your table isn't just being set, it's being set with golden plates, with the finest linens, with delicacies that will nourish not just you, but everyone you invite to sit with you. Because that's what divine overflow does. It makes you a blessing to others. If you believe your table is being set, comment, "My table is ready." Heaven is listening. But as God prepares this feast of favor, as He positions you for this season of supernatural overflow, there's something else stirring in the spiritual realm, something the enemy doesn't want you to discover. Dear ones, I need you to look beyond what your eyes can see. Beyond the headlines screaming about division, beyond the politicians promising empty hope, beyond the voices telling you that your best years are behind you. Because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every limitation you've accepted about this season of your life. This was never just about you. Let that sink in. Every prayer you've whispered in the dark, every tear you've shed over family struggles, every sleepless night wondering if your life mattered, none of it was wasted. God wasn't just working for you, He was working through you to accomplish something so massive, so earth-shaking, that angels have been holding their breath waiting for this moment. You think you're just one person, one voice, one vote, one heartbeat in a world of 8 billion. But here's what the enemy desperately doesn't want you to understand. You are a generational game changer. You are the hinge upon which history turns. You are the match that lights the fire that burns for 1,000 years. This was about your children, your grandchildren, the legacy you're about to release. Think about Moses. 80 years old when God called him to the burning bush. 80. The world would have written him off as past his prime. But God saw something different. He saw a man seasoned by decades of preparation, refined by failure, humbled by life's storms. Moses didn't just deliver one generation, he shifted the trajectory of an entire nation for centuries to come. What if God has been preparing you for 80 years for this exact moment? What if every hardship was boot camp? What if every loss was training? What if every sleepless night was God whispering strategies into your spirit for a battle you didn't even know was coming? You see, what God is doing through you will ripple far beyond your lifetime. Picture a stone dropped into still water. That first splash seems small, insignificant. But watch what happens next. Ring after ring expands outward, growing wider, reaching farther than that stone could ever travel on its own. Your prayers, your choices, your stand for righteousness, they're not just affecting today. They're creating waves that will crash onto shores 50, 100, 200 years from now. Your great-great-grandchildren will walk in freedoms you're fighting for today. They'll inherit spiritual ground you're claiming with your intercession. They'll live in victory because you refused to surrender in your 80s and 90s. The prayers you're praying right now are answering questions they haven't even asked yet. But here's the urgent truth that's shaking heaven's gates. Time is running shorter than you think. Not your time, God's timeline for this generation. Daniel 2:21 tells us that God changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. We're living in a season of divine shifting. Old systems are crumbling. Ancient promises are coming due. The stage is being set for the greatest revival in human history, and God needs His seasoned warriors on the front lines. You are a fire starter, a lineage shifter, a nation blesser. Stop looking at your wrinkled hands and see them as they truly are. Hands that have learned to hold on when everything else let go. Stop focusing on your slower step and recognize it as the deliberate pace of someone who knows where they're going. Stop mourning your fading strength and realize that God's power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Your weakness isn't disqualifying you, it's positioning you for God's greatest display of power through your life. The enemy has spent decades trying to convince you that your influence is waning, that your voice doesn't matter, that you should just sit quietly in the corner and wait for heaven. That's because he knows something you're just now discovering. You carry the authority of someone who has walked with God through every season of life. You have credibility that youth cannot fake, and wisdom that cannot be taught in seminaries. When you speak, generations listen. When you pray, heaven mobilizes. When you take a stand, the gates of hell tremble. But here's what will break your heart and ignite your spirit simultaneously. There are millions of your peers right now who are buying the lie that their time is over. They're sitting in nursing homes believing they're forgotten. They're watching television thinking they're powerless. They're counting pills instead of counting blessings, focused on dying instead of living with divine purpose. What if God is calling you to be the one who wakes them up? What if your testimony becomes the alarm clock that rouses an entire generation of sleeping giants? What if the very platform you're watching this message on becomes the vehicle God uses to mobilize an army of silver-haired warriors who refused to go quietly into that good night. You were chosen to release something eternal, not something temporal, not something that fades when your body fails. Something eternal, something that echoes in eternity, something that changes the spiritual DNA of your family line forever. Abraham was 75 when God promised him descendants like the stars. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to the promise. Anna was 84 when she recognized Jesus in the temple and became the first evangelist of the New Testament. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain. Your mountain is still ahead of you." The question isn't whether God still has a plan for your life. The question is whether you're brave enough to climb it, whether you're bold enough to believe it, whether you're committed enough to see it through. Say it loud, say it proud. I was born for this. Let heaven and hell know. You're awake, you're aligned, you're unstoppable. Because the generations coming after you are counting on the fire you're about to release. And that fire starts burning right now. There is a moment just before the sky breaks open, a stillness that whispers, heaven is about to speak. And chosen one, it's whispering to you. Right now, in this very second, something is stirring in the spiritual realm. Can you feel it? That restlessness in your bones. That electric tension that makes you feel like you're standing on the edge of eternity itself. You're not losing your mind. You're not imagining things. What you're sensing is the atmosphere of heaven pressing down on earth. And you, dear soul, are directly in its path. The orchestra is tuning. The stage is being set. You're not late. You're just arriving for Act 2. For months, maybe years, you've felt it building. That divine discomfort, that holy unrest. You've tossed and turned at 3 a.m., wondering why your spirit won't settle. You've caught yourself staring out windows, sensing something monumental approaching but unable to name it. Your friends call it age, your doctor calls it anxiety, but heaven calls it preparation. Listen to me carefully. Your current discomfort is not a breakdown. It's the echo before the unveiling. In 1 Kings 19:12, Elijah encountered God, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in a gentle whisper. That whisper is the same frequency heaven uses when it's about to move mountains in your life. And right now, that whisper is so loud it's keeping you awake at night. But here's what nobody told you about divine stirrings. They always feel uncomfortable before they feel miraculous. Think about the moment before Jesus walked on water. The disciples were straining against the waves, fighting for their lives in the darkness. They thought they were drowning. They had no idea they were about to witness the impossible. That's you right now. Chosen one. You think you're struggling, but you're actually being positioned for a miracle that will redefine everything you thought possible at your age. You feel forgotten, don't you? Like God moved on to younger, stronger vessels while you sat on the shelf gathering dust. You watch 20-somethings build empires while you wonder if your best years died with your youth. You see miracle testimonies and wonder why God's power seems to skip over your generation like you're invisible. Stop right there. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation out of bondage. Abraham was 100 when God gave him the son of promise. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she became the first person to proclaim Jesus as the Messiah to the world. Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your divine appointment. But here's the truth that will shake you to your core. God has been saving you for such a time as this. Every wrinkle is a badge of wisdom. Every gray hair is a crown of experience. Every ache in your joints is proof you've survived battles that would have destroyed lesser souls. You're not old, you're seasoned. You're not forgotten, you're being prepared. The stirring you feel isn't random, it's prophetic. Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your season isn't ending, beloved. It's just beginning. What you thought was your sunset is actually your sunrise, and what's about to break over the horizon will blind everyone who counted you out. Right now, in the invisible realm, angelic forces are moving on your behalf. Resources are being realigned. Divine appointments are being scheduled. Supernatural favor is being released. The very thing you've prayed for, cried for, waited for decades to see it's in motion. The delivery truck is pulling into your driveway, and heaven is about to unload blessings that will leave your family speechless. But why does it feel so uncomfortable? Because birth is never painless. Every great move of God begins with a stirring. Noah felt it before the flood. Moses felt it before the Exodus. David felt it before he faced Goliath. Mary felt it before the angel appeared. And you're feeling it right now because heaven is about to birth something through you that will outlive your earthly body. The enemy wants you to interpret this stirring as anxiety, depression, or restlessness. He wants you to medicate it, ignore it, or explain it away. Because he knows that if you recognize it for what it really is, a divine labor pain, you'll start pushing with purpose instead of fighting the process. Comment, I hear the stirring, if your spirit already senses that something holy is about to shake loose. This isn't about positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is about recognizing the signs of divine intervention. In Joel 2:28, God promises, "I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions." Notice that? Your old men will dream dreams. God saves some of his most powerful revelations for those who've lived long enough to handle them with wisdom. You're not too old to dream. You're finally old enough to dream with authority. The stirring you feel is your spirit man recognizing its moment. After decades of preparation, training, and refining, you're about to graduate into a level of purpose that will make your past accomplishments look like practice rounds. This isn't your retirement season, this is your reign season. Every trial you survived was a qualifying exam. Every loss you endured was building spiritual muscle. Every disappointment you overcame was developing divine character. God wasn't punishing you through those years. He was preparing you for this moment when the world would need exactly what you've learned, exactly what you've overcome, exactly what you carry. The silence before the storm isn't empty, it's pregnant with possibility. And chosen one, what's about to be born through you will change not just your life, but the lives of everyone connected to your bloodline, your community, your sphere of influence. But here's the question that will determine everything. Will you trust the stirring, or will you silence it? Because what happens next depends entirely on your response to heaven's whisper. You know what breaks my heart? For decades, maybe your entire life, they've been telling you to tone it down. Turn down your passion. Quiet your convictions. Stop being so intense about your faith, your dreams, your burning desire to see God move in power. Maybe they called you too emotional, too intense, too much. But what if what the world rejected was actually sacred? What if that fire in your belly that never quite went out, even at 70, 80, 90 years old, what if that wasn't a character flaw? What if it was your assignment? Listen to me carefully, beloved. The enemy has spent your entire lifetime convincing you that your intensity was a problem, that your deep spiritual hunger was somehow inappropriate for your age, that your desperate cry for revival, for breakthrough, for God to move mountains was just too much. They told you to act your age. Sit quietly in the back pew. Let the younger generation take the lead. But heaven is about to shatter that lie into a million pieces, because what I'm about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about your purpose. You weren't just chosen. You were sent. And you've been walking around half awake in a world that needed your fire. Do you feel that? That stirring in your chest right now? That's not nostalgia. That's not wishful thinking. That's recognition. Your spirit recognizing truth. Because deep down, you've always known you were different. You've always felt like you were carrying something too big for ordinary life. Think about Moses, 80 years old when God called him to the burning bush. 80, the world would have written him off. Too old, Moses. Let someone younger lead Israel out of Egypt. But God said, now you're ready. Now you understand suffering. Now you have the depth I need. What happens when a sleeping prophet wakes up in a generation gasping for truth? You've lived through the greatest changes in human history. You've seen America transform from a nation that prayed in schools to one that's forgotten how to kneel. You've watched moral foundations crumble while politicians promised progress. You've witnessed the erosion of everything you held sacred, and something inside you has been screaming, "This isn't right." That scream, that righteous anger, that burden for your grandchildren's future, that's not bitterness, beloved. That's prophecy trying to break out of your bones. Like Elijah in the cave, like Esther before the king. You were hidden until now because heaven was protecting its secret weapon. Jeremiah 1-5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Not just Jeremiah, you. God doesn't make mistakes with timing. He doesn't accidentally let his chosen ones live too long. You are alive right now, in this exact moment in history, because this generation needs what you carry. But here's where it gets deeper. Here's where the revelation becomes revolution. You've been feeling like you're running out of time, haven't you? Like your window of opportunity is closing. Like maybe God forgot about the dreams he planted in your heart 40, 50 years ago. Stop right there. What if I told you that everything you've experienced, every heartbreak, every disappointment, every moment you thought God was silent, was actually preparation? What if every decade of your life was boot camp for this moment? You think David was ready to be king when Samuel anointed him as a teenager? He needed the wilderness. He needed Goliath. He needed years of running from Saul. He needed to be broken and rebuilt until he understood that true authority comes from absolute dependence on God. You are David after the wilderness. You are Moses after the backside of the desert. You are Caleb at 85 saying, "Give me this mountain." The world sees your age and whispers decline, but heaven sees your years and declares depth. They see wrinkles, God sees wisdom. They see limitations, God sees liberation from the need to impress anyone but him. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. You are dangerous to his kingdom right now. Not despite your age, but because of it. You have nothing left to lose and everything eternal to gain. You've been stripped of the need for human approval. You've been freed from the pressure to build a career or climb social ladders. You are spiritually nuclear, and nuclear power in the hands of someone who truly knows God. That's world-changing. Haggai 2-9 promises, "The glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former house." Your latter days these days will be greater than your former days. Not in human terms, but in kingdom impact. But here's the catch, and listen carefully, because this is critical. You have to wake up. You have to stop believing the lie that your time has passed. You have to stop shrinking back into safe, quiet, appropriate Christianity. The world is on fire, beloved. Your grandchildren are growing up in moral chaos. The church is compromising truth for comfort. And heaven is looking for someone with enough fire in their bones to stand up and say, "Not on my watch." Comment, "I was sent." If something inside you just stood up, this is your signal to stop shrinking. Because what comes next will require everything you are, every year of experience, every battle scar, every moment of preparation. The greatest chapter of your story isn't behind you. It's about to begin. Now listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will explain every unexplained hardship, every broken dream, every moment you wondered, "Why me?" Ever felt like life hit you harder than most? Like your joy was always just out of reach? Like while others seemed to coast through life, you were fighting battles on 3 fronts: financial, emotional, and spiritual. That's not a coincidence. That's not bad luck. That's spiritual warfare. You see, the enemy has a hit list. And your name, it's been at the top since before you drew your first breath. Think about it. Why do some people seem to glide through life while you've walked through valley after valley? Why did tragedy knock on your door more than once? Why did you lose people you couldn't afford to lose? Face illnesses that nearly broke you? Endure betrayals that cut to the bone? because even hell can recognize a chosen one before the chosen one does. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah 1-5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." But here's what they don't tell you in Sunday school: if God marked you before birth, so did the enemy. You were marked in the womb. And darkness tried to abort the mission before you spoke your first word. Every attack on your family line wasn't random. Every pattern of addiction, depression, poverty, broken relationships, those weren't just generational curses floating around aimlessly. They were spiritual assassins sent with surgical precision to take you out before you could discover your true identity. Look at your life honestly. How many times should you have given up? How many nights did you cry yourself to sleep, begging God to just let you die? How many moments did you stand at the edge, literally or figuratively, ready to surrender? But you didn't. You're still here. And that, beloved, is not human strength. That's divine protection in the middle of a cosmic war zone. The enemy didn't fight you for who you were. He fought you for who you were becoming. David faced a giant because he was destined to be king. Joseph was thrown in a pit because he was destined for a palace. Moses was hidden in a basket because he was destined to deliver a nation. And you faced hell on earth because you're destined to bring heaven to earth. Every trauma was a failed assassination attempt. Every setback was darkness trying to convince you to quit before you reached your divine assignment. Every tear you've cried has been collected in bottles by angels who knew what you were really fighting for. Listen to me. Satan doesn't waste ammunition on civilians. He reserves his fiercest attacks for those who pose the greatest threat to his kingdom. The very fact that your life has been a battlefield is proof that you carry something he desperately wants to destroy. In 1 Peter 5-8, we're warned. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. But notice, lions don't hunt sheep. They hunt the strong. They hunt the leaders of the pack. They hunt those who can rally others. You've been under attack because you're dangerous to the forces of darkness. Your prayers shake hell. Your potential terrifies demons. Your destiny, when fully realized, will liberate others who are still trapped in the very prisons you've escaped. Every rejection prepared you to accept only God's approval. Every betrayal taught you to trust only heaven's voice. Every loss showed you that your true treasure isn't found in this world. Every battle made you a warrior worthy of the crown waiting for you. But here's where it gets personal and painful. Some of you reading this are still believing the enemy's lies about yourself. You're still carrying shame from mistakes that God has already forgotten. You're still wearing labels that hell placed on you: worthless, damaged, too old, too broken. Stop it, right now. Those aren't your names. The same voice that called you chosen before birth is calling you chosen right now. The same God who protected you through every assassination attempt is ready to reveal why you survived when others didn't. You didn't survive by accident. You didn't make it through just to make it through. You survived because there's a generation waiting for the wisdom only your pain could produce. There's a mission that requires the specific combination of scars and strength that only you possess. Comment: I survived for a reason right now. Because that reason is about to rise. And when it does, hell will realize their greatest mistake wasn't failing to destroy you. It was making you stronger in the process. The assassination attempts are over. The resurrection power is here. And everything that tried to kill your destiny is about to become the very foundation of your greatest victory. Beloved chosen ones, as we reach the end of this sacred journey together, let me remind you of the profound truths we've uncovered today. You are not here by accident. Every trial you faced, every tear you've shed, every moment you felt forgotten, it was all preparation for this very season. The enemy targeted you from birth not because you were weak, but because he could see the warrior, the world changer, the carrier of God's light that you were destined to become. Remember this: your greatest assignment is still ahead. The wisdom earned through your pain, the strength forged in your struggles, the faith refined in your fire, these are not scars of defeat. They are medals of honor, qualifying you for a mission that younger souls could never handle. You are not too old. You are not forgotten. You are not finished. You are finally ready. And beloved, you are not walking this path alone. Right here, right now. Thousands of chosen ones are reading these words, feeling the same stirring in their spirits, recognizing the same divine calling. We are a family, a spiritual army, a community bound not by blood, but by purpose. When you comment below, when you share your story, when you type those sacred numbers, you're not just interacting with a video. You're joining a movement of ordinary people doing extraordinary things because they finally understand who they really are. Let me ask you this. What if everything you've survived was training for everything you're about to accomplish? What if the very thing that nearly broke you is about to become your greatest ministry? Before you leave this sacred space, I want to pray over you, not as a stranger speaking through a screen, but as your brother in faith, placing my hand on your shoulder, believing with you for the breakthrough that's coming. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with us until this moment. You know their names, you know their struggles, you know the dreams they've carried and the disappointments they've endured. Lord, I pray that your divine light would pierce through every shadow of doubt in their hearts right now. Father, remind them that you are not finished with their story. The chapters of pain are closing, and the chapters of purpose are opening. Breathe new life into their dreams, restore their hope, strengthen their faith. Show them the divine assignment you've been preparing them for all these years. God, surround them with favor. Open doors that no man can shut. Align divine connections, release supernatural provision. Let them feel your presence so powerfully that every lie of the enemy dissolves in the light of your truth. And Lord, use their testimony to reach others who feel forgotten, others who think their time has passed, others who need to know that you still work miracles in ordinary lives. Let their lives become living, proof that with you, it's never too late for a divine turnaround. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Beloved, if this message has stirred something deep within your spirit, don't keep it to yourself. Comment below and let us know what's the one thing God spoke to your heart today. Share this video with someone who needs to remember they're chosen. Your story might be the very thing that saves someone else from giving up. And if you haven't already, subscribe to join our family of chosen ones. Hit that notification bell because your breakthrough story is still being written, and we want to celebrate every chapter with you. Remember, you are seen, you are loved, you are chosen, and your greatest days are not behind you, they're straight ahead. Until we meet again, walk in the confidence of who you are, rest in the love of who chose you, and step boldly into the destiny that's been waiting for you all along. You are not alone, you are not forgotten. You are divinely positioned for such a time as this. God bless you, chosen one. Your time is now.